Hey everybody, this is Kaous Games. Today what I want to talk about is my experience with Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Now, the interesting thing about this review is, in particular, is that I have to say this is my first experience with a Zelda game. It's going to come as a shock to some people, but one of my younger years, I never really had Nintendo products until recently. So about a couple years now. So this is the first Zelda title I've ever actually wanted to pick up, so I did. So it's going to get a unique perspective from someone who doesn't have the nostalgic ties to the series as most other people who've reviewed this, I'm sure. So without further ado, let's get down to it then. So this new era of gaming has brought us a lot of bad things, like paid DLC and add on and tack the story on as you go type of bullcrap that happens. But it has brought us some good things that have spoiled me a bit too, like the silent protagonist archetype has pretty much, for the most part, gone out of style, and it made sense for a certain time period when the games didn't have as much resources to go off of. And it made more sense to set it up that way in those days. But increasingly powerful leads like Geralt from The Witcher 3 and so on, it's hard to really get into get behind a character who doesn't have a voice of their own. When they are, the lead and established lead character. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't mind silent protagonists in games where you create your own character, because I understand that for those games you're supposed to imprint yourself onto those characters. It makes it easy to do when you've created that character. However, when I play a game and there's already an established character, I've been spoiled. I want my characters to have a voice. I want them to have motives I can understand and get behind, or not get behind or disagree with. I want them to have a clear-cut personality that you can latch on to. And this new generation mostly has kind of spoiled me when it comes to that. Now, Link, obviously, that's been the running joke with Link for his whole existence that I understand. He doesn't have a voice. He doesn't speak. He's always silent, and that made it very hard to connect with him. And because he's the main character, it made it very hard to connect with a major part of the story as much as I would have liked to. That's not enough to get me behind somebody. Whatever. But that doesn't take away from the story too much, though. There's still some elements in there, like the memory quest where you're trying to recover his memories, that you get the idea of how other characters around him feel about things, which is okay. You may not understand how he's necessarily feeling, other than he's the noble knight and does his duty. That's pretty much all you know about him. He doesn't have any layers. But everybody else does in the game, so that's good. And the story itself was good. It's good always when you have a comeback story. Basically, Ganon kicked their ass. They didn't know it, didn't see it coming. He came out of nowhere and just owned them, and then they had to regroup 100 years later and figure things out after that. The story was engaging. Now, that's one of the limited bad things about the game, in my opinion. A lot of people probably still find, most likely due to nostalgic value, probably find that silent protagonist arc in Link to be endearing because that's what they grew up with, that's what they're used to, and if you try to change that formula, they're probably going to rebel horribly. But as a new person coming in, that wasn't so good to me. But, alright, so, and also what's interesting about this title is nowadays you either have, an RPG, or you have some kind of very clear-cut titles that come out these days, like first-person shooters, third-person shooters, RPGs. One title style that you don't see so much anymore in the AAA market is a pure action-adventure title And Zelda is that, which is very strange. I'm not used to playing these anymore. What I mean by that is there's no clear-cut way to get physically stronger. I'm sure you can get more health and stamina, but you don't see that clear-cut progression on strength of the character. It's all based around the weapons you find in the environment. So theoretically, if you get a good weapon early game, when you first start with the, when you have 4 hearts or whatever, which is his HP is hearts, as you all know, you'll be about as strong as you would be when you go to fight Ganon at the end of the game. And so, there's no clear-cut progression, which is a strange thing to me, because I'm used to that clear progression from playing so many RPGs. You feel your character getting stronger. You've built your character to a certain point, and you just kind of get behind that strengthening of the character. Not going to happen here. It's all about the adventure, and there's a lot to see. The world is massive, and it just kind of, you gotta focus on other survival skills to compensate. Like most games, I don't do any kind of cooking. This is the first game I've ever played where cooking was super important to me. So, I had to learn I taught myself all the little tips and tricks how to cook, because I didn't really pay attention to guides when I was playing this game. So I taught myself all the little tips and tricks for cooking. Like mixing certain ingredients together with, raw animal parts to create a dish that would make me resistant to some type of element. Which leads me to my next point, which is this game had a high level of detail. Like, I was going around just thinking, okay, cool, I'm going to just, run around here. I'll try to get over this mountain. It's not really going to affect me too much. But, he starts trying to climb up. He can pretty much climb everything almost in the game. And that takes up stamina gauge. So you got to watch that and monitor that. Which adds a different element. And also, another thing I found interesting, if you go into too high places sometimes while climbing, aside from the threat that you might fall off and die from losing your stamina and climbing, you might freeze to death if you don't have the right clothes on. Which I didn't know, because early on in the game, when I was stuck on the Great Plateau area, I froze to death a couple times because I'm like, I can't compensate. I don't have access to clothes that can protect me. I didn't understand much about what the game was doing at that early on in the time period, so I died a couple times just from the elements. And then later on in the game, you go into a volcano region where you gotta, by necessity, buy some clothes that will be flame-proof and protect you from the searing heat of the volcano. And then other times you gotta get some other clothes that'll protect you, just from give you general heat resistance when you go into the desert. So that was an interesting aspect of the game. You don't see too much in a detail. You don't see too much in the game. So I thought that was amazing. Now, what I didn't like so much was the breakable weapons. In Zelda, if you get certain weapons, I understand there's probably a way you can get unbreakable weapons, but I didn't bother with all that. But there were some couple weapons I found during my playthrough that I really liked, and fortunately they don't last that long. I mean, you use them against an opponent a couple times, they'll break. I don't know of any way to repair them. If there's any way to repair your weapons in this game, I didn't find it. So I lost a couple weapons that I really liked. Which is unfortunate, but it adds a little layer of detail, I guess. And realistically, you can't just keep whacking things with your weapon. It's gonna get damaged and require repair. But I couldn't find a way to repair my actual weapon. So if there was, let me know. I didn't really get that far into it to decide. It's like just use something else if it broke, whatever, Until I got the Master Sword, which was unbreakable. But they did warn that if you use it too much, it might render it more ineffective for a time. So I didn't use it if I didn't have to. I mainly only used it when I fought Ganon at the end of the game. So I kind of just used all my other weapons I picked up instead of that, just to be sure I didn't, mess it up in any way, because I wasn't really sure how that would happen. And also, I thought that the trials were generally okay, and that's the kind of the most RPG aspect of the game. It's like you don't get experience points, but you can get your character stronger in some ways by giving them spirit orb increases to their stamina and health gauge. But that's about it. It's absolutely necessary to do the health gauge one if you want to get the mesh sword. Minor spoiler there. Didn't know that because stamina was more important to me early on in the game because I was trying to climb a lot of stuff and do stuff. So just keep that in mind. If you want the master sword, you might want to focus especially on the hearts. So that was cool. Some of the trials were fun. I played it on the Wii U. I'm not sure how it is on the Switch. I wasn't about to buy the Switch to play this one game, especially when I could play it on my Wii U. Sorry. But on the Wii U experience, there was a couple times they make you use the gamepad. And I remember one time I was using the gamepad, and you had to use this hammer with the gamepad and hit this ball into this hole like mini golf or something. So, I take my gamepad and I go whoosh, and it flings over the way across my room onto the wall. So that was just a little funny experience with that. But they had a couple of little fun experience, little mini games with the gamepad that were a little entertaining when I wasn't about to break my shit doing it. So yeah, that was fun. The combat system itself in the game was a little stiffer than I'd like after coming from playing something as smooth as Nier. Automata with a combat system like that, it was a little bit stiffer than I would like. Some hack and slash elements. No real strong attacks or anything like that in this game. It's very basic. Got a standard hold for strength attack that uses stamina up. Not too special. What I did find awesome was that the perfect dodge system they have. If you dodge right at the right time slows down for Link, and you can just go on this flurry rush on the opponent. And I had one pretty awesome experience with that at the end of the game when I was fighting Ganon. He went into this impenetrable shell thing almost that was taking me a long time to figure out how to break it. And I used a special ability to help me break it the first time, but obviously if you use special abilities too much from one of the Guardian abilities, then they have to take time to recharge. So I had to I found out that you had to perfect dodge one of his attacks and go on a flurry to get past the impenetrable shield he puts up at the end. And I did that right at the end. It was like one of the most awesome moments. He had a little bit of health left, and I did a perfect job. I was like, "Gotcha, bitch!" and just came in there and messed him up at the end. So that was pretty awesome. Whenever I was able to get that off, that was always a pretty cool moment, especially when I was doing some of the more difficult strength trials where you had to fight high-level guardians. That was always awesome to do. But I will say, overall, the fighting system was pretty basic, a little stiffer than I'd like, but it was alright. It worked for the game, and that's all there is to it. Soundtrack, the soundtrack is not very important to a lot of people, but to me, it's pretty important. And honestly, I'd say that the soundtrack in this game was, not that great. Aside from, the famous Zelda theme, which was certainly played and had its renditions in this game, there wasn't really much notable to me about the soundtrack in this game, especially after coming from playing something with an amazing soundtrack such as Nier Automata. This really didn't hold a candle, so coming from there to that, it's, I don't know. Some people might find it endearing. Again, nostalgia value, I don't have that. Keep that in mind as you listen to this. I do not have the nostalgia value that you have. So, coming from that point of view, I will still say if you have it was a great game. If you have a Wii U, definitely should pick it up. As if I had to tell you to do that. If you're picking this up, you probably were a fan of Zelda to begin with, or so I'm probably one of the rare occurrences where I'm going to be a new person who's jumping in this late. But if you're a new person like me, which is probably rare, yeah, it's worth picking up. It's a lot to see, a lot to do. The world is pretty lush, and you probably will like this game if you're into action adventure style games, or RPGs even. It's very very similar to an RPG in many ways. So definitely worth picking up. Is it would I say it's a system seller for a Switch? Not by itself. I mean, Metacritic did give it a 98, so if you were going to go off of that, then yeah, sure. But I mean, the critics love this game. I think it's all right. It's a decent game. I can't knock it. Like I said, I think I thoroughly went through what I thought about it in depth. So I think that's pretty much all I have to say about it. So until next time, this is Kaous, been Kaous Games. And Gamers Game On.